So how this works is, or to have the most productive conversation, we want to talk about a deeply held belief, because our beliefs influence our decisions, right, and how we interact with the world. So is there like any like things that you're like, yeah, this is definitely true, like 100%?
So for me, I was raised in like not a religious family at all, but
Okay.
my dad's side is really religious. Like
Okay.
in Mexico, they have a lot of crosses, like because majority of Mexicans are Catholics,
Yeah.
and Christians. So in my dad's side, I remember I didn't know that much, so my grandma had to teach me a lot of it.
Okay.
But in my mother's side, I didn't know that much about religion, so I kind of grew up like where a lot of people that I knew were really religious. I was like not that religious.
You're not that religious?
Yeah, but no, I've been trying to lean more towards it because I find it really interesting.
You're trying to go towards religion?
Yeah,
Okay. Is there a particular religion that you're like?
maybe just Christianity, I guess.
Christianity.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about like Christianity like is enticing to you, or like what makes you think like Christianity is true?
I don't know. Like for me, like it's kind of the religion that I know most about because I don't know about Islam or Buddhism. Even though I took a class of it, which is also kind of interesting. I like it, but I feel like it's the one that I can relate most to because, like, if for example, I live in Mexico and I talk about Islam, they're gonna be like, "What is he talking about?" Because not many people know about it, and I also feel like because my family also believe in a thing that in Mexico is kind of the Virgin Mary, but we call it La Virgen de Guadalupe or Virgin of Guadalupe. That's kind of what I believe in, who is kind
Okay.
of like not a savior, but kind of like something you pray on.
Okay.
When you need like assistance or like a guide, you kind of just kneel and just like ask like forgiveness or like advice, which I
Okay.
normally do.
Interesting. Okay. So you would say that like Christianity is true then?
I would say like, for example, not to be like kind of like
No, it's fine.
unambiguous. I would say like we don't know what is true and what's not because there's like every religion has its own identity, which like they say, for example, in Christianity we believe in God, but like for example in Buddhism they believe in Buddha. So until like there's like kind of like a certain evidence about something, I feel like every religion like kind of is true in its own part.
Interesting. Okay. So every religion could be true.
Could be true.
That's really interesting. Okay. So, what if you had to put like a confidence scale on like Christianity is true, from like 0 to 100? How much
0 to
confidence
100,
would
maybe like an 80.
an 80? Okay,
Yeah.
80%. Okay. Okay. What are some of the reasons that lead you to like this 80% confidence that Christianity is true?
Well, I would say a lot is that I think that it was one of the biggest religions. So like if it wasn't like true or like that believable, then not many people would believe in it. And I also feel because it's kind of like the religion that like most has like data on it, like the Bible and all the like customs in the church. I feel like it's the one that most people like identify with and like the one that they believe is the most likely to be true. But I may be wrong. Maybe any other religion could like have some parts that are true in one religion and another parts that are true in other religion.
Interesting. I appreciate you acknowledging that you could be wrong. Like I really like that. It's kind of like why we're here is just not to necessarily instill doubts, but to make sure that like people believe that their own reasonings is good for their belief, right? So all right. So the reason, one of your reasons is that it's like the biggest religion, or the most people follow it, and like that leads you to like it being true. And you also had like touched on some other thing, like some of the data behind
the
it.
data, like the Bible. Like if I just, for example, write I don't know, a book and I say, oh, it has to be true, then there's like no evidence whatsoever. Like for example, I just made my own kind of like religion. Well, some people might identify it, but until like there's like more evidence, or because I could just say whatever I want and it could be its own religion, but not many people could identify with. So I would say until like you have your own community that can support it, can like believe in it, then I wouldn't say it's true.
Okay, I'm not quite sure I follow, so I'm going to repeat it back to you. So there is data associated with like the Bible, but the Bible itself isn't really evidence because you said like anybody could write.
Yeah,
the book,
anybody
right?
could write it.
Okay, so what could you give me like an example of like something, some data that you like leads you to believe that Christianity is true?
Maybe all like the art. I would say the art and
Art.
maybe like the crosses, like the ones that are in churches. Like maybe those are kind of examples because like for example, in Mexico, there's like a kind of like a body that is supposed to be of like a missionary that was really important. So like kind of like all those bodies and that in Jerusalem, if I'm correct, is where Jesus lies, and there's like a whole like cemetery and like that. I feel like that's part of the evidence based on it.
All right. Is there any other reasons that you like lead you to this conclusion?
Maybe because I don't know honestly, because like I guess some people would say, oh, somebody just made it because they felt it was true. So like as I previously told you, I may be wrong about it, but I just feel like it may be true until like for some people, and I feel like if they believe on that, they should believe on it. Like if it helps them like continue through.
Okay. All right. All right. So basically, there's like these two reasons. Like, yeah, you had given the example of like art and
Yeah,
like
and
the
art and the
cross and
cross, yeah.
stuff, and then like it's the biggest religion. Then. So if you had to like assign like a percentage between these two, like which is the most impactful towards that like 80% confidence that Christianity is true?
Sorry, can you?
Sorry, that was a lot of words. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, of these two, like, which has more weight that leads you to the conclusion that Christianity
I would
is
say
true?
maybe the art, because like the art, like if you think about it, it's very similar. Like the
art.
main topics are really similar. Like in all the arts, like if it had, I don't know, like different, like if Jesus didn't have like I don't know, like for example brown hair, and then and another one he had I don't know, blonde hair, it would see like you would say, oh, it's not believable. But maybe because all like the arts are similar in some way, or like still have the same like idea, it could like help you believe or think that it may be true.
Okay. If you had to put like a percentage on it, like if you would you put like 50 or like 60, 70, like of the two, like the best, the most people versus, you know, this artwork? Like if you were to find out that, you know, the artwork, you know, isn't really good evidence for the belief, would that like change or influence your confidence?
It may, because like I guess like until it could be, because maybe as you said, like some people would say, oh, the art is just art, and like I guess it could change my belief. But like for example, as I told you, I'm like I got raised in a really not religious family, so for me like if it may be true, it won't affect me that much if it's like not true at all. But for some people, it may like be quite revealing and quite damaging. But for me, like it would just be like I guess like something that I'll just be surprised.
Okay. So I'd like to touch on that a little bit if you don't mind.
Yes,
so, you know, if somebody has a belief, you know, that's like about God or something, and do you think that it changes how they interact with the world, even if it's maybe not that impactful to them? Do you
I guess it may give them a like more positive view on life, like kind of, or like at the same time, I feel it could make it more positive, but also like more like I don't know, demanding. For example, like if you feel like something is going wrong, you have to like pray or like that, which I feel like it's good, but I feel like sometimes you should take your own initiative if
Okay.
you want something to do it done,
Right.
and not just like pray and hope that something happens. Like
Yeah.
that's what I feel.
That's really interesting, yeah, right? Because somebody could, you know, I had used an extreme example yesterday. Somebody had given me an example like, oh, you know, they could have prayed rather than going in and saving a child from a burning building, right?
Yeah.
Like that might be an example. But maybe something less extreme, right? They might, you know, decide to pray rather than, you know, going to the hospital, right? Yeah. Okay, interesting. All right, so go back to the art thing. You had said that would, you know, that's a bigger part of your confidence than it being the biggest religion. But then you also kind of said that if you were to find out that the art really wasn't good evidence for the belief, that it really wouldn't sway like your belief in Christianity at all. So is there like something else that would contribute more to the confidence then?
Like I don't know, because I do identify with the religion, but not that much. So like I feel like not many things could sway me as somebody who got raised in like a really Christian family where you pray and like that. For example, if the art got like debunked, let's say, they might be more affected by it. But some people who were like raised in like not that religious family, they may just feel like it's kind of like a bit of a shock, but then they might just be like, well, I guess that's life.
Okay, interesting. So what about the art makes it so compelling to you?
For me, I feel like, as I previously said, that all the arts, like that they portray, I don't know, like any religious symbol, like they're quite similar. So it's quite interesting to see how, like, even if they're like through different times, they still have the same main idea of like how Jesus died, or how like the crucifixion. They still have the same idea, but they may just adapt it to their own way.
So if there was another religion that had a whole lot of artwork that like dated back for millennia, would that be a good reason to believe that that religion is true?
It could, but like, for example, as I previously told you, like each religion is like have some similarities in between them. For example, each one of them believes like in a god, or kind of like an idea of like somebody holy. So I feel like if, for example, they unearthed a new like portrait of like that, maybe it could be the true religion. But until, like, for example, not every religion may be right in some way, but they may be like just correct in some aspects. But I guess if they, as you said, if the art got unearthed, like some people may believe in this new religion, or some may just be like kind of like in shock or like in awe about it.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. You were saying, and I remember you saying before, and I was going to go back to it, about the you have the two different religions, and they both claim to be true, right? And each of them have these like competing worldviews about how reality functions. How could both of them be true at the same time?
I don't know, but I feel it could be true, because they, like, if you believe in it, if it's true, then for you it would be true. But like, some people may believe that one religion is true, but other may believe that it's not true. So they can be both true at the same time, depending on the like the beholder, or like the person who believes in it. But like, it makes it like harder to see which one would be true, or if both are true, if multiple people believe in that.
So I think what I hear you saying is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to follow along here. So you could still have these two views, even though they have different definitions of how the world functions, because some parts of them are correct and some parts aren't, right? Yeah. And so then that would be okay. So how does that work if there is two particular claims about, like, let's say, like how the world was created or something like that, or how their God functions, and like they can't be true at the same time. Like one particular part of the claim, right? So maybe, for instance, like, with Christianity, like the earth was created by God, and what was the story of Genesis? I don't know if I'm not super familiar with it.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So like God created the earth, the famous like "Let there be light." But then this other religion that somebody else believes to be true is like, well, no, it didn't actually happen that way. It's like always been that way, or it's all like time has always existed, or something like that. And these are two very different ideas of how the world works. So how would we like go about figuring out whether or not which one is true? Or do you think both of those could be true at the same time?
Both of them could be true, like in some areas, but like this is why there's like so many, like there's like many religions, because like all of them have like their own aspirations and like ideas. So none of them may be correct. All of them may be correct, or just in general, some may just have this feeling of being correct, but they might be wrong. But if they insist on it, it's just their own idea. So I feel like a religion could be true, but at the same time it could be incorrect, and nobody will fully know. Like even when every human dies, and like everybody like of us like has like passed their ways, people are still not gonna know which was the true religion, because like all of them could be correct in some areas, or none of them could be correct, and we could just have been like created through like the Big Bang, rather than a holy symbol just came came out of nowhere.
So I have these Tic Tac here, and this is kind of a way to like explore this a little bit. So in this container of Tic Tacs, there's even an even number and odd number in here, right? Would you say that it's possible that there's both an even and an odd number in here at the same time?
No, not really. Yes and no. There could be because, like, for example, it's kind of like Schrodinger's cat. We don't know if it's even or odd until you count it. So it could be, it's both at the same time because you don't know until you fully count it if it's even or odd. So it could be both at the same time.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You had said about we could count it, right? Do you think we can count these Tic Tacs and figure out if it is even or odd?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we could count this and figure out if this is even or odd, how is it that it could be both true that it's even and true that it's odd?
It's like, as I told you in Schrodinger's like example of the cat, like the cat was poisoned. And like until you open the box, you don't know if it's dead or alive. So it's kind of in a state where it's both alive and dead. So it's the same with here. Until you open the thing, it could be either an even or an odd. Like until you fully count it and know what it is, it could be both, or it could just be even. Like if, for example, you told me you already knew the number was even, and you told me, can you guess what it is? You would know the right answer, but I wouldn't. So like,
right, I don't know how many is in here to be honest. I have no idea.
No, but that was just kind of like
yeah. But so at what point in time should we believe whether the Tic Tacs in here is even or it's odd?
Until you fully count it, I would say.
Okay, so if we had two people that believed that it's true that it's, or one person that believed it's true and one person that's even, and both of them were 100% confident that it's both even and odd at the same time, do you think that they would be reasonable in that belief?
There would be, because like kind of there is a right answer and there's a wrong answer, but until you fully count it, both of them are right, because like you still wouldn't know what it is until you finally know what it is.
Right. So if we were to count these then, and then those two people, do you think one of them would be wrong?
Yeah, one of them would be wrong because like once you count all of them and let's say there's 16, it was even. You can't say, oh, it's odd because we already know what a number is.
Right.
Like, you can't like just change something that was already founded on and basis. Well, you can change it if there's like enough evidence, but something like such as numbers, which has already been like dated and already been subjected to many changes, it's already known. So once you know it's 16 and it's an even, it's an even.
Okay, so after we would count the Tic Tacs then, right, and we had those two people, and we decided that there's an even number in here, and we then discovered like the one person is wrong. Do you think their belief was warranted?
Yeah, it is, because kind of like if their belief is that it's even, it's even for them until you finally debunk it. So it is kind of warranted, because if you don't believe in anything, like for the Tic Tacs, it makes no difference.
Is it important for you to believe things that are true? If you were to believe something that was false, would you want to know?
Me personally, I would want to know, rather than having this mysterious of like awe, like not knowing if it was true or not. I would just rather know if it's false or true, so I can have that like feeling of like stability and kind of like solemn that I finally know the answer. Like for example, if they finally, I don't know, find out that God was real, or like if any other religion was real, I would just be happy that they finally know the truth, rather than having this long debated where which religion is correct and which one is incorrect.
Okay, so when it comes to the Tic Tacs, then when would you want to, believe that the Tic, or if you were to believe one of the other, sorry, I'm butchering this question. Apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
So you have. Let's rewind there for a second. You were saying about the. Actually, could you rephrase it? I'm sorry. I lost track.
For the thing I was saying that, for example, for the Tic Tacs, once if you told me, would you want to know if, for example, I said even and it's odd, I would rather.
You'd want to know, right?
Yeah, I would want to know.
Okay, so if you would want to know, how would you find out, right?
For like the Tic Tac, as I told you, once you open it and count all of them, you would figure it out. Because for me, like trying to eyeball it would make a difference, because I might count one of them twice or like that until like I can see it with my own eyes being counted.
Okay.
I would feel that is true.
Do you think you should, because like you had said, you'd want to know if you were wrong about a belief. Do you think we should count the Tic Tacs before we come to a conclusion?
I feel like if you do that, then you would already know the answer. But if, for example, let's say I just came and you told me that there's 16 Tic Tacs there,
Okay.
I could believe you, or I could say he's lying. So until like I see it with my own eyes, I would still have this idea that I am correct and you're wrong, even though you may be correct and I'm wrong.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you. I appreciate the conversation. Do you have any questions for me about it?
No, not at all.
All right, awesome. Well, what did you think of the conversation?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit less confrontational, or than you're normally expected when.
No,
talking
not
about
really.
beliefs?
If I feel like in this type of, like, for example, YouTube videos or conversations, you do have to be confrontational, because if you are letting the person, like, for example, if I say, oh, I'm correct, and you're wrong, you still have to like pinpoint the idea, because you may be correct, and even if I feel that I'm right and I'm wrong, you still have to like talk about it. You just can't let me be
Yeah.
in that action where I have control
Right.
as the interviewee, and you're the interviewer and you have less control.
Yeah, so like what I'm trying to do, and like part of what I'm doing is like I want to believe the least amount of false things and the most amount of true things that
Yeah.
possible, right? So like when it comes to the Tic Tac, if I believed that, you know, the Tic Tacs were even without counting them, well, I could be wrong, right? So
Yeah.
I personally don't think that's like a good reason to believe it. I think that once I count it, then I can go, oh yeah, that is in fact
True.
even, and now I
Yeah.
believe it, right? Because if not, then that leaves me to potentially believing something that's not
Not
true.
true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then I could be interacting with the world with this false belief, and it could
False
be
narrative,
changing.
yeah.
Yeah, and I could be changing what I'm doing, right? Yeah. So, all right, man. Well, thank you. Nice talking, Mateo, right?
Yeah, Mateo.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. So there's a QR code there that'll actually take you to the YouTube channel if you want to view this at a later point in time. Oh, let me get the lapel mic from you too.
Oh yeah.
And then I'll give you this